Your journey, your speed, your story. Find your pace. Natalie Rizzo, welcome to Find Your Pace.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I am actually really excited to have this conversation with you because, as someone who runs basically for a living, running is a huge part of my life. So is nutrition, but you specifically are plant-based nutrition, which I think is really fascinating. So I really want to touch on a lot of these things, but just to give a little context to the listeners here of who you are a registered dietitian, the founder of Greenleats, which is a plant-based sports nutrition platform, a cookbook author, and the nutrition editor at Today Digital. But your early career didn't start off on the nutrition track. Before we dive deeper into Greenleats and all things plant-based nutrition, let's first talk about what exactly sparked your interest and eventual transition into the nutritional world.
Yeah, so I'm a career changer. I actually didn't become a dietitian until I was 31 years old. So my first career was in ad sales. Actually, my first job was for Nickelodeon. Yeah,
So cool.
yeah, this is like back in 2006. I helped sell commercials on TV, which is like so outdated now at this point.
Yeah.
But that was my first job. It was a sales assistant, just like helping the executives sell these commercials. It was something I kind of fell into. I always knew that I liked media and communications, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do at, 19, 20 years old when I was in college. So I ended up there. It was cool. I worked in Times Square. I got to be in the Viacom building back when it was Viacom, but it wasn't a passion. And I didn't really know what my passion was. So I took a few years to figure it out. And I kind of just looked at what did I like to do. I love to exercise. I love to cook, but I always like to take a recipe and kind of make it healthier. I liked looking into nutrition facts. I liked reading nutrition articles. So I kind of thought, can I make this a career? And it's actually incredibly difficult to become a dietitian because it's a science degree, which I didn't have. So I had to go back to school when I was about 25, take all these science classes, then get a master's. The whole transition took me almost 5 years to become a dietitian
Oh, wow.
because you have to do a dietetic internship, then take an exam. But I loved it. Like I loved every aspect of it. And so I ended up doing that. And that's why it took me until I was 31 to become a dietitian. But it was just basically stemmed off of loving nutrition and fitness and wanting to turn that into a career.
Before we go into more, I just need to know the Nickelodeon thing. How did that happen?
It was just like I went to college in Boston. I went to BU and I had some internships there. I had an internship at CBS. So I had a little bit of experience in the media world. And it was just one of those things. Like I applied. Back then you would just apply online and I don't even think there was LinkedIn. I didn't even know anyone. I just applied. The kid called me in for an interview and it seemed really cool. Like
Yeah.
the walls were yellow, there was SpongeBob playing on the TVs.
Oh my
There was
gosh.
Razor scooters in the hallways. People would like ride around Razor
It's
scooters.
like almost like you're at Disney World, basically, or
Yes.
or what is it, Universal that is
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
characters?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really what a cool experience to
It
have.
was.
Also, when you were so young.
Yeah. It was fun. I know. I think like MTV was still there.
Yeah,
I think MTV is defunct now. Like so much
yeah.
has changed, but it was really fun when I was like 23.
So you graduated from college and went right into Nickelodeon.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then around 25, you went back to school because you were like, okay, nutrition is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then you graduated by 31. You're now registered dietitian.
Yeah. That was around 2015. Yeah.
Okay, and you've been since.
Yeah.
So you created Greenleats, which is very clever. And
Thank you.
I had asked you off camera, how to pronounce it. Can you just explain like where that name came from?
Yeah, so that's actually an evolution too. My first kind of like blog or like foray into media was actually called Nutrition a la Natalie. And it was just like a fun thing that I started when I was in grad school to basically share recipes with friends. But it turned into more because people kept visiting the site and coming to me for plant based stuff. So then it wasn't really until maybe 5, 6 years ago that I was like, I really need to hone in on this niche
Mhm.
and turn it into this plant based space that people are coming to me for. So I kind of did a lot of thinking of what's something unique that I can come up with. And I kind of just came up with the name Greenleats on my own, which is a combination of green, meaning, plant based, and then
Mhm.
athlete. And I still get questions like, what does that mean? Where did that come from? But it's just kind of something I came up with that hopefully speaks to a lot of this plant based athletes. It's really like a growing trend now to become plant based. So I think like I'm
Yeah.
seeing more and more traction with it, but it was born out of kind of people coming to me for that already.
Yeah. So when you talk about athletes, you're an athlete yourself. What specifically, like what sport do you do? Or
I'm a runner.
Okay.
So I mostly speak to runners, but I always say like all endurance athletes. Um, yeah, not so much like bodybuilders or anything, more people who like you cycle, hike, swim, because it's kind of one and the same in the
Yeah.
nutrition aspect. It's a little different from sport to sport, but most endurance athletes are kind of doing the same stuff in terms of nutrition.
What made you decide to get into sports nutrition specifically?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's interesting when you study nutrition, it's actually a science degree, like I said, and a lot of times you're not learning anything about fitness. Um, where I went to Columbia for my master's, and they had a sports nutrition track. Like you can choose to do nutrition education, public health, sports nutrition. You choose what track you want to do. And to me, it was kind of a no brainer. Why would I not do sports nutrition? Why would I not learn about the fitness aspect of this? Because those two things go hand in hand,
Hmm.
I think. But a
Agree.
lot of nutrition programs don't actually delve into that at all. So
That's
I
crazy.
know. And there's not actually a lot of sports nutrition programs within the country. There's more growing now. But back then, you know, dietitians weren't even involved in sports teams. Like it's growing. Yeah,
That's bizarre.
I know.
You literally need food to perform,
Yeah.
right? So you would think that's common sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's like still some major league, whether it's baseball, NFL teams that don't even have a dietitian on staff. It's becoming more prevalent, but there's a lot of teams that like back then didn't have it at all.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something a lot of people studied. I was lucky that my program had it, but yeah, for me it was like a no brainer. The two things have to go together.
Yeah. Well, your career spans journalism and dietetics, including being a nutrition editor at Digital. Why am I words are hard today? How did you become interested in communicating nutrition through media rather than just clinical work?
Yeah, so it was just basically in grad school, like going back to the fact that this is a science degree,
Hmm.
you're taking biochem and organic chem and all of this stuff. And I was really interested in the communications aspect of it. And there wasn't that much that I was able to do in that field. So I just started a blog, being like, I'm just going to start a blog and start writing articles and sharing recipes. And I was kind of one of the only people doing it back then, especially in my program. But there was other dietitians that were, you know, writing for Food Network and but only a few. So I
Hmm.
kind of just started networking with them and asking like, how did you do it? How did you start pitching to the media? This is something I want to do. And I started kind of doing that on the side while I was in grad school. And then my first job was in food service. I worked in a corporate cafe, actually in an investment bank, helping
Fascinating.
them like design the menu and while doing that, I still did media on the side. So it was kind of like a very small thing that I built up over time, just like freelance writing and wanting to spread more nutrition information in a science-based way from a
Yeah.
dietitian. So yeah, it was like just a hobby that I turned into something that I did more and more. And I was good at it, obviously.
Mhm.
Like I was a good writer and I was able to communicate this in a way that people could understand. So it just evolved over time. What happens when you become a dietitian is you have to do a dietetic internship. It's kind of like med students do a residency. It's a year long.
Got it.
You're
Okay.
not paid, but you have to do it in order to sit for your RD exam. And you go through rotations. So a huge part of that is clinical. You will spend a lot of time in a hospital learning how to work with patients who have cancer, GI issues, heart disease, because that's where most dietitians actually work is in
Mhm.
hospitals. But then we also do a food service rotation. So we work in food service, like some people work in schools. My food service rotation was actually really cool. It was in a law firm, and they had this healthy menu that they, you know, wanted a dietitian to overlook. And from there, I networked and I knew the chef. And then they were opening up a new cafe in an investment bank. So they kind of offered me that job out of grad school, which was really cool because they wanted this to be basically a healthy cafe and they wanted a dietitian to oversee the menu.
That's amazing. I think where people get confused, and I think a lot has to do with social media, is the difference between a registered dietitian and a nutritionist. Can you just briefly explain the difference of those two?
Yes. So a dietitian has to take a registered dietitian exam, and we are accredited by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And every 5 years, we have to do continuing education credits. We're supposed to do them throughout, but basically, you have to submit every 5 years how many you've done. So you have to continue learning. And you now actually, I think it's as of 2024, you have to have a master's in nutrition. Before that, it could have been a bachelor's.
Hmm.
And you have to do this dietetic internship which is I think 1,200 hours, 1,200 supervised hours, which is why it takes a full year. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Mhm.
A nutritionist, I don't want to sound I don't want to sound pompous, but basically anyone can call themselves a
Yeah.
nutritionist. There's nutrition certifications that you can pay for and take, but it's not really a term that's regulated in any way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so one is regulated, one is not.
exactly.
Yeah, and RDs have to every 5 years basically continue education and keeping up with a certification.
Yeah.
But I think what I notice the most with registered dietitians, like you mentioned earlier, is like most of the time they're in hospitals. That's where they're most
Yep.
seen. It almost feels like a registered dietitian feels so clinical and you only go to them when it's like the end all be all, like you're at your wits, you don't know what to do. Nutritionist seems a little bit more like I don't know if it's, like, easier to find because I mean, like you said, you can go online and just get a certification for, but it almost just, like, feels lighter to talk to a nutritionist, and they usually tend to be either more accessible or maybe a little bit cheaper because, you're going and getting your master's and, paying all these things, but you have a knowledge that makes it worth to pay maybe a little bit more, but it just feel do you feel that ever? Like, you feel like people lean more towards nutritionists than they do dietitians?
Oh, absolutely. And
Okay.
with the rise of social media, it's like a blessing and a curse
Mhm.
because I think a lot of nutritionists or wellness influencers have gotten really big and gotten a huge following on social media, and people believe what they say. But I also think some dietitians have done that very well recently. I think that since media is growing and there's podcasts and social media and so many other things, TikTok and YouTube and all the things that weren't even huge when I
Mhm.
started becoming a dietitian, it's like dietitians can now get out there more and spread their message, but they're also fighting against
Yeah.
people who are not really credentialed. So there's like this push and pull with it, and it, with
Yeah.
everything. I think also, like you said, dietitians are clinical, and a lot of them have a hard time taking the science because everything we do is based in science and breaking it down for people to understand, or
Yep.
even for people to want to understand.
Mhm.
And there's only some dietitians who are good at that. Not
Yeah.
all of them are, and not all of them wanna be.
Yeah. I had a therapist on a few weeks ago and it was kind of similar of like a therapist versus a life coach. Like feel like the, nutrition aspect is also the same like dietitian versus nutritionist. It's what has a degree and what has a certification. Not saying any of them are wrong and they help people in their own, their own avenues, but it's good to know the difference, like especially if you are somebody that's looking for help in, your health, it's good to know, okay, what is each? What like which one should I actually be going towards? I always like to lean on the specific or on the science-based stuff, but then again, like you said, sometimes it's just hard to digest when somebody doesn't know how to break down science in a just easier language,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know?
Yeah, I was recently at an event with a trainer who owns a gym and he's like in amazing shape. And he was like, everyone's coming to me and saying, I want science-based stuff. And sometimes it's not about the science, it's just about how you feel. And I was like, okay, well, I would argue it's about the science, but some people don't want that.
Yeah.
Some people just want, what's gonna make them feel good. So I think it depends on the person.
Yeah. I want to ask you, so you are plant-based yourself. Are you vegan or are you
I'm
vegetarian?
vegetarian, but
Okay.
mostly vegan. I always say like I eat cheese once a week on pizza. Otherwise, it's mostly vegan.
What made you take that path? Have you always been?
No, I
Okay.
grew up eating like meatballs and lasagna. I it was honestly about the time I was studying nutrition. I kind of looked into the health benefits of not eating meat. I also never really loved meat.
Mhm.
I was one of those people that my mom made me eat chicken growing up and I never really liked it. We didn't eat a lot of red meat or a lot of fish, but I just like didn't love it.
Mhm.
So giving it up wasn't hard for me. I also live in New York City, like things are accessible here. It's easier to kind of do it. It wasn't like one day I was like, "I'm gonna be a vegetarian." It kinda just happened naturally, and while I was studying nutrition and when I became a dietitian, I was just doing it. I wasn't really promoting it,
Mhm.
but, like I said before, people kind of noticed I was a vegetarian and found that a lot of dietitians weren't at the time. Now there's a lot more, and they were coming to me for that. Like, "Oh, I want your recipes that are vegetarian. I want to learn more about how to be a runner and be a vegetarian." So you kind of lean into what people are coming to you for. And also, I'm super passionate about it. Obviously, I love
Mhm.
talking about it,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like a choice that I made to start doing it and promoting it. It was just kind of natural.
I would s you know, I relate to that very much. I was a pescatarian for about 12 years, but I had the same thing. I didn't really eat a lot of meat growing up. If I did, it was always, like, unhealthy. It was, like, chicken nuggets, fried stuff, right? Like, never healthy.
Yeah.
My dad would make healthy chicken, and I just would not wanna eat it. Like, my mom would make these amazing, like, meatballs and stuff, and I would just eat the spaghetti. Like, I realized right after high school, I was like, "You know what? I don't even eat meat. Why don't I try pescatarian?" And I tried to do vegetarian, but I realized I was not getting enough nutrients. I did not eat healthy. So my problem was I just was eating just carbs and whatever I could get my hands rice and bread and things. And so I went pescatarian route. I started incorporating more salmon and things like that. I fell in love with sushi, like loved that. But it wasn't until like 3 years ago, or it was about 3 years ago when I started incorporating meat again. Do you ever think that you would ever eat meat again?
I don't.
No.
I'm kind of not into it. It grosses me out.
It is kinda gross. The first time I got into it, I was like, "This is disgusting." Like, handling it like chicken grosses me out so much. But I'm just interested to know if that's so when you got into green leads, let's talk about that. So what made you decide to really start showcasing on social media, "Hey, plant-based nutrition for sports, is good."
Yeah. I mean, I had this like I had a newsletter list and I had a social media following and I kind of started just asking people like, what are you coming to me for? And that was it. They were coming to me for the vegetarian info. I think at the time people didn't even really talk about plant-based. They called it more vegetarian,
Mhm.
vegan. And I was like, why am I not leaning into this? So it was just that why not lean into this? And then also it was a little scary to niche down that far
Yeah.
because I think when I started my first blog, Nutrition a la Natalie, it was just like general nutrition, like sharing recipes. And I think that's what people used to do before social media got as big as it was
Mhm.
because not as many people were sharing messages. But now so many people are, you have to kind of niche down really far to get people to hear your message.
Mhm.
And still to this day, sometimes I'm like, am I too niche down? Am I too, is it too niche? But I don't think it is. Like,
No.
so yeah, it's kind of one, it's a business choice, obviously, to have that very specific niche. But then two, it's something that I'm passionate about. And then three, people were already coming to me for it.
I don't think it's too niche down because regardless, you are a registered dietitian for, sports nutrition. And then, but you're just plant based. You specialize in plant based. I do have a question. Do you work with anybody that still eats meat?
Yeah, occasionally
Okay.
people will come to me because they want to be more plant based. Or like this interesting thing, like, I will always say I'm a vegetarian, not a vegan, even though I'm mostly vegan, but I'll find this people tell me they're vegetarian and then talking to them, and they'll be like, "But I still eat chicken." So I get that kind
Yeah.
of type of thing that happens, but and I'm not like, I'm never one of those people who's trying to chastise people who eat meat.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make you do anything. If you wanna be 90% plant-based and then eat chicken or eat a burger every once in a while, that's fine, and you wanna work with me? Great.
Mhm.
I'm happy to, like, help you figure out how to include more tofu and beans. I think that's what people kind of come to me for is
Mhm.
they want to eat more of this stuff and they don't really know how.
I like the term plant based because you're not feeling like you are in this category of being a vegetarian or a vegan. And like you're saying, like if you're 80, 90% plant based, but you like to have chicken on occasion, like that's great. I do think it makes sense though that people need to be almost like involved with plant based a little bit more because we do not get enough nutrients on the daily. And so it gets confusing. Okay, like there's all these different beans and all these different nutrients out there and leaves and greens and all these things. And we don't know which way to go with it. So where do we default? Meat and rice, right? Like you look at most people plates, it's a carb and it's a meat, right? So I think what you're doing is actually very, very valuable to sharing. Okay, like you can do all these sports. You don't need to live off of chicken and rice and broccoli every single day. There's actually so many good plant-based foods out here that can serve, all the things that you need while still being in sports.
Well, absolutely. And thank you. But I also think because people are so obsessed with protein right now, that's like the
Yeah.
uphill battle with the plant based stuff. And I do have people come to me who have seen other dietitians. Like, for instance, I had a client recently who was vegan, fully vegan for a long time. And she had saw another dietitian who wasn't vegan, and that dietitian didn't really understand how to help her. Because I think unless you're doing this, like I eat tofu, tempeh, lentils, beans, like as my main sources of protein. Unless you're doing that every day, it's
Mhm.
hard to advise someone to do that. So I
Which is,
think,
like, not the fault of them, like,
yeah,
they
not at
just
all,
it's
for
not their
sure.
specialty. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, there's that, but also like people are obsessed with protein, so I'm fighting
Yeah.
that battle.
Yeah, but, like, you could still get plenty of protein in a plant-based diet.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
otherwise we wouldn't survive. There wouldn't be plant-based people.
Yeah, no, and that's what like, there's plant-based ultra marathon runners, there's
Mhm.
plant-based professionals. I was pregnant twice while being plant-based. I ran marathons while plant-based. You can absolutely do it, you just have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, which is why people like you exist.
Yeah.
When did you create your cookbook?
I was pregnant with my son, so it was in 2021 I wrote it. I think it came out in 2023. Yeah. Yeah. It
And what was, like, your vision with that?
Basically, exactly this, sharing plant-based recipes for athletes. So there's meal plans in there that go through like if you have a strength training day and you have a long run day, kind of like how to eat for that. There's a whole chapter on carb loading or at least carb heavy meals. There's pre-workout snack chapters. There's like things to eat during a workout chapter. So it's kind of trying to help people who are plant-based eat a certain way because nutrition for athletes is different than nutrition for regular people because we're talking about things like, sports drinks
Mhm.
or having a little more added sugar in your diet or having more carbs. So, helping people do that while also being plant based.
Do you also work with people that aren't really sports heavy?
Yes.
Okay.
So, not as much. Like people will come to me, maybe they're really into their Peloton or like they're still
Mhm.
active. It's usually not, I don't do like a lot of weight loss stuff or if someone has diabetes, I refer them out or
Mhm.
things like that. It's more so that they are active. Um, but yes, not necessarily marathon running or ultra running.
What is your main goal when you're working with these clients?
Usually I ask them what their goal is.
Okay.
And that's like the first thing that we get into. What's your goal here? Sometimes it is maybe I want to lose a little bit of baby weight, but sometimes a lot of time it's like I just don't think I'm fueling right. That's
Mhm.
like the main thing that always happens. I don't think I'm fueling right. So we go through it. And a lot of times, most people are under fueling, I would
Yep.
say. They don't even know exactly how to fuel for a workout, but then they're not even thinking about recovery after a workout.
Mhm.
And then a lot of people with the plant based are skimping on protein. So they don't know where to get the protein or how to add it in. There may even be like they're timing their fiber raw. They're getting a lot of fiber because they're on a
Yeah.
plant-based diet. Maybe they're having it before a workout and then they have GI issues. So things like that pop up a lot.
Protein and fiber seem to be the biggest things on the internet right
Yes.
now. So in plant-based, you're saying maybe people struggle more so with protein, but not fiber.
Yes.
Okay.
It's interesting. Like I said, I'm always up against people wanting more protein, but I think in
Mhm.
the plant-based space, we're still seeing people be confused about protein and how to get enough of it. But then there's so much fiber in foods that can maybe cause some GI stuff.
Like
So,
too
yeah,
much
there's
fiber?
a lot of if you eat there's someone just recently asked me, "What does WFPB mean?" And it's whole food plant-based. You'll see that acronym come up a lot.
Mhm.
People try to do this like very whole food, no processed food, plant-based, like a very quote unquote clean
Clean.
diet.
Yeah.
Which is hard to do. But when you're doing that, there's like a lot of fiber in the diet, and that
Yeah.
you're almost as can be a detriment to athletes.
What does a normal food day look like for you?
For me,
Yeah.
that's a good question. So I'm not like against having some processed food in my diet. A lot of times when I have it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm running, which most mornings I am, I actually start with something like very carb heavy, like a waffle, and I
Mhm.
will go out on a run having that waffle because I need that carbs because I'm running like really early in the morning. My kids are 2 and 4, so I'm like up
Aw.
at the crack of dawn.
Yeah.
So I'm out at like 6 a.m. So it's something that I have to like be able to digest really quickly, like a waffle.
Mhm.
But then I come back and I have something that's more protein heavy. Like I'll have a smoothie. I like this plant-based yogurt that's called Kite Hill, and they're like one of the only ones that actually has protein in it. And I'll use soy milk and I'll use fruit. And then sometimes I will even have oatmeal if it was a longer run. And then for lunch, I always kind of throw something together. What did I have today? I actually had leftovers of like I made this kind of like peanut edamame noodle thing the
Ooh,
other night.
yum.
Yeah, so it was like whole wheat spaghetti with edamame and broccoli and peppers, and I made this peanut sauce. So like that'll be left over. But sometimes it's just like chickpeas mashed up with avocado and put that in a wrap. Um, and then I'm very into like meal planning because I have these little kids that I have to like figure out what my dinners are every night. So on Sunday, I usually plan for the week.
Mhm.
So we rotate a lot of like I rotate the proteins. So it'll be like one night's tofu, one night's tempeh, one night's lentils, one night's beans. But like tonight, we're probably gonna have a tofu bowl with it's basically like a tofu sesame thing with rice and veggies in there. And then that sounds like I eat only healthy foods. I do have like, dark chocolate throughout the day. I love pretzels as like a snack.
Mhm.
So I try to like be primarily kind of whole foods, but then throw in some of those, healthy, the convenience
Yeah.
foods too.
Well, I don't think eating completely clean is accessible to most people.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
we live on the go lives. Also, things can get expensive. So sometimes just having a pretzel, like pretzels and chips and things like, readily available. Well, now I'm interested for runners specifically that are training for marathons. What about all these gels and things? These are all processed. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% for them. Like
Okay.
I use Cliff shot blocks during my long runs.
Okay.
I've also tried Nerd gummy clusters, which is like a
The best.
yes,
But you have to eat a lot of
I
them.
know.
That's the problem.
You have to eat a lot of them. And I also felt not as great as I did using the
Yeah.
sports products because they
Yeah.
don't have the electrolytes and whatever. The sports products also have two forms of sugar in them. I don't know if you've heard of this. Like your body can absorb two different forms of sugar at the same time. So it can
Okay.
like sucrose and fructose.
Yep.
So a lot of these sports products have those two forms of sugar so that you can absorb the sugar faster, which gives you the energy faster. But, like, the candy doesn't have it. It only has the one form of sugar. So, like, there are some downsides to it,
Yeah.
but it's also, like,
That's
so much
fascinating.
yeah, yeah. It's
So you would you like not recommend the candies as like number one? It's maybe just like mixing that in on top of the other things.
yeah, I think it also depends on the person because they are so much cheaper.
Yeah.
Whenever I have to buy the sports products, I'm, like, so annoyed at how expensive they are.
Yeah.
They're accessible. Like if you have a Target across the street, you can go buy them. So like if you really can't get the sports products, these are a good alternative. But
Hmm.
the sports products really are formulated for athletes because they're like absorbed well, they have the electrolytes. So like I'm usually trying to get people to incorporate more of those. Like I feel like people who run marathons are taking in one or two gels and I'm like, "No, you need like 8 gels."
Yeah.
However many it is.
I would say underfueling is more common than overfueling.
Oh,
It's
100%.
yeah. But it's like, people they underfuel, I think, one, because they just don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And two, they probably don't feel great when they're eating these gels. Like we don't eat gels on a regular basis. They
Yeah.
are a consistency. It's very specific. Sometimes they don't taste great. You get a flavor you don't like. They're also really expensive. So, are there other types of fuel besides the sports and besides candy that you recommend if people are like, I can't do any of that?
Yeah, I mean, you can do, for instance, like maple syrup
Mm.
or
Do
honey.
you see they're putting those into packets
Yeah,
now?
yeah. Have you ever tried it?
No, I'm
They're
scared.
very sweet,
Yeah.
like incredibly sweet. I tried it once thinking I would love it because I like maple syrup, and
Yeah.
it's like so sweet. It almost like makes your mouth pucker. But yeah, you can do that. You can do a banana. You can do dates.
Yep.
You can do raisins. Like you don't have to do these things. These things are more for convenience
Mhm.
and they're made for you to be able to like swallow quickly.
Yeah.
So if you stop for a banana, let it take some time or
Mhm.
whatever, but you can still do that. Also, you can carry the other things easily,
Yep.
but there are other options. You can do pretzels, like
Yeah.
anything that's a really simple carb, things that you may think are not good for you are usually what you need during a long run or an endurance event.
Would you say that these things are bad for you?
No, no. And I think that also a lot of people are scared to gain weight, which is weird because it's not weird. We grew up in like a diet society.
Yeah.
But even athletes have that where they're like, well, I don't want a carb load or I don't want to do this because I'm going to gain weight. And it's like, that's not what's happening. I keep trying to tell people, you are taking in this sugar for your body to use it. When you're done with
Mhm.
whatever you did, your event, the sugar is gone. Like your
Mhm.
body's not storing it. It's for you to use.
But in reality, your weight probably will fluctuate if you're training for a marathon.
Yeah.
You probably also are gaining muscle and you might be losing fat, but you also like I tend to usually gain a little bit of weight when I'm marathon training. Probably I'm maybe carb loading a little too much, but like if I'm running 30, 40, 50 miles a week, I deserve to eat whatever I want. That's how I live.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to starve myself if I'm running for running a marathon. But I think it's just making people realize it is normal for weight fluctuations when you're training for things, especially you're learning how to even do the nutrition aspect. I think people get into running and they don't realize like nutrition is such a huge portion of actually running,
Yep.
especially if you want to run far, you want to stay healthy, you don't want to get injured. I feel like there was this huge moment where everyone was getting not shin splints. They were getting bone, I don't even know what it's
Stress
called.
fractures?
Stress fractures.
Yeah.
And so I Googled it and it's like one of the main reasons people get stress fractures is because they're lacking nutrition.
Mhm.
Have you seen a lot of that in your
Oh,
clients?
yeah. Not within my clients, but I've
Okay.
seen it just, like, in people. I mean, I recently saw a runner who broke a hip. She was, like, in her 20s and,
No.
you know, was not doing anything she
Mm,
shouldn't. It wasn't like she, like, fell or whatever. It was just from underfueling. So, like, this happens to everyday people. It's not just elite athletes.
yeah.
And stress fractures are pretty common, especially among women
Mhm.
because we have hormonal changes. And another thing that happens with women is we're low in iron a lot, especially in the plant-based space
Yeah.
because iron comes from meat. So that can contribute to injuries. And yeah, underfueling is not just like feeling crappy while you do something. It's also like can injure you.
What are the plant-based options that have the most iron that you recommend?
It's hard with iron. I always tell people who are plant-based to probably get their blood levels checked because there is a chance you are deficient in it, but you should never supplement unless you know because you can overload with iron. It is a mineral that can be toxic.
Oh.
Yes. So going back to the original question, there's like beans, black beans, spinach, quinoa, oats. It's in a lot of plant-based foods, but it's a different form of iron. It's called non-heme iron and it's not absorbed as well. So actually the recommendation for vegetarian and vegans is to have almost twice the amount of iron that meat eaters have, which is not always easy to get.
Mhm.
Um, and because women menstruate, they lose iron in the blood every
Mhm.
month. And there's actually something called foot strike hemolysis, which is essentially every time your foot hits the ground when you're running, you break down red blood cells. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
So iron's a big one that I actually end up talking about a lot with a lot of clients.
Well, you brought up supplements. What are your thoughts on supplements?
I always say supplements should supplement the diet.
Thank you. You do like I think the problem is consumerism. It's
Yes.
just all these supplements exist. Get your blood levels checked, talk with a registered dietitian, talk with a doctor, whatever it is, and only supplement what you're not getting in your diet. At least that's how I comprehend it.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yes. I think it was Run to the Finish. I saw a meme that she posted with something like, I never was peer pressured to do as many drugs as I am now in my 40s to do creatine. Like
Yes.
it's
Well, wait, what are your thoughts on
I
creatine?
think it is beneficial, but it's just kind of like there's so many things that we're being pressured to do in
Mhm.
terms of supplements, creatine, then some people do pre-workouts and then beta alanine and there's another one what is it? Bicarbonate, which is basically baking soda. There's so many.
Yeah.
Like honestly, for myself, the supplements I take are iron because I am iron deficient, vitamin D because it's
Yep.
hard to get from the sun, and that's pretty much it. Like
Mhm.
I tried creatine. I found it a little gritty and I didn't really like love the
Well, now
taste
there's
of it.
like chews and
Yeah.
drinks and
Yeah.
all of these things
But it
now.
is beneficial. Like the research is there on that one in
Yeah.
terms of increasing endurance, increasing power. And I think it is beneficial. So if
Mm,
you want to do it, go for it because it's also hard. You can get it through the diet, but it's mostly animal foods.
got
So,
it.
but I do think like there's nothing wrong with taking creatine.
Is that something that can be tested, like blood levels? Like, oh, you need, it's not something that we need. It's just something that could benefit us.
I
Is
think you
that right?
probably could test it in the blood levels. But I don't think a doctor would do it, and
Okay.
I don't think insurance would cover it. That's the other
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
it's like,
No, you're right
yeah,
about that though. Creatine is literally everybody's talking about it. Should you take it?
yep,
But what you said though, it does have the research behind it because but that's again, these brands are using that as a tagline. The research, the research, the research. What is the research? Like as a consumer, I don't know. I'm hearing creatine, I'm hearing research, I'm hearing supplements. But what's funny is that the term supplements is literally telling you exactly what it is. It is a supplement. It is to supplement what is not in your current diet.
yeah,
Like, oh, it cracks me up.
yep.
Well, what is something people misunderstand the most about plant-based diets?
I think that you can't get protein is like still the
Okay.
main thing. You definitely can get protein. You have to eat more food. So when I work with people, what I end up going through is that you probably need to eat a larger volume of food than you
Mhm.
think you do. For instance, 3 ounces of chicken. It's small. It's like the size of your palm. That's probably got 21, 22 grams of protein. 3 ounces of tofu is smaller and it may only have 9 grams of protein, but it has less calories. So you're probably going to want to eat more of it. So you
Mhm.
can't sub out one for one when you go to a plant based diet. And also, you should be combining foods. Like if you are the person who eats animal foods, it is easy to eat broccoli and chicken. And there you
Mhm.
go, you got a meal.
Yeah.
If you eat plant-based foods, you really need to combine foods. So you have the tofu. You should combine it maybe with some rice, which also has protein. People don't realize starches have protein. And then the broccoli has some protein. And then maybe you put some pumpkin seeds on it. So you're eating more foods together to get more of what you need in a meal
Mhm.
rather than when you eat animal foods. It maybe is a little easier, but you just have to know what you're
It's like
doing.
a little bit you have to put a little bit more thought into your foods,
Exactly.
into your meals. That
Exactly.
makes sense. Do you think that there's a sport that works better with plant-based athletes?
That is a good question. I don't think so. I think it's you just have to kind of know what to
Mhm. What to
do.
do?
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
What's a piece of advice that you give to athletes that wanna transition to a plant-based diet but nervous about performance?
Make sure you're eating enough. I
Yeah.
think that's the main thing is make sure you're eating enough and also if you're going to transition to a plant-based diet and then rely on supplements, don't do it. It's not even worth it. Cuz I also see the other thing is rely a lot on protein shakes. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on protein shakes?
I will say I had a protein shake yesterday because I had like 5 minutes to get ready and I
Yeah.
didn't have time to do the whole thing. But that's, it happens every once in a while.
Mhm.
I say it's a convenience food.
Yep.
I think a lot of people incorporate it into their diet every single day as
Mhm.
a way to get protein, but I think of it more as a convenience food when you can't eat the whole foods because, you know, it just has protein. It doesn't
Yep.
have anything else in it. It doesn't have any of the vitamin C you're going to get from the blueberries you add to your smoothie or the fiber or things like that.
Mhm.
So I don't love them, but I see the need for them. And then I've also worked with some athletes, for instance, guys who are, you know, work 12-hour days and then they're training for a triathlon and they are not going to cook anything
Yeah.
and they just want to get the nutrients in. And they're like, but I really want to use the shake. I'm like, fine, use the shake.
Yeah, it's like time and place. Like if
Exactly.
you are in a crunch, you would rather them have something than nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, that makes
Exactly.
sense. Well, as a dietitian working with active people, what are the most important nutrients that vegan athletes should pay attention to?
So definitely iron, like we talked about.
Yep.
Vitamin B12 was another one that,
Is that the energy?
yes,
Okay.
it helps with glucose metabolism actually.
Oh.
And if you are deficient in vitamin B12, it can act like anemia, which is when you're deficient in iron. People don't realize that when you're deficient in iron or B12, you actually feel terrible. Like there's certain side effects. You can get headaches, like insane fatigue. You can get restless leg syndrome, which you won't know it unless you have it. But I had it when I was pregnant because it's very hard to get enough iron while pregnant.
Mm,
And you wake up in the middle of the night and your legs just like ache. Like you feel like you have to get up and move.
oof.
Your hair can fall out. Like things can happen with deficiencies in these things that are not just performance based. They just make you not feel good. So vitamin B12 is actually made in the intestines of an animal. And because if you don't eat animals, you don't get it naturally. It's fortified in certain foods, meaning like it's added to plant based milks or nutritional yeast or the faux meats. So it's not as easy to get. That one is not like iron. You can take it. It's a vitamin, and
Mhm.
if you don't eat it, your body will just pee it out. So that's one a lot of people may want to take. And then vitamin D is another one
Mhm.
where most people, even if they eat animal foods, are deficient in it because the main source is the sun. And yeah,
Especially those that live in like the
yes,
East Coast in the winters.
exactly. And it's really important for bone health. So especially people who have a history of fractures or like you talked about before, stress fractures. Yeah. It helps
Oh.
your body absorb calcium. So vitamin D and calcium go hand in hand.
Is that something that you can take without knowing your blood levels?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a fat soluble vitamin, meaning that your body needs fat to absorb it. Most doctors, if you get a physical, will check that on the blood panel and
Mhm.
tell you if you're deficient, and most people are. So it doesn't really hurt to take vitamin D.
When you work with do you call them clients?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. When you work with your clients, do you ask for a blood blood panel. Say that 10 times fast. Do you ask for one before you start even working with their
I don't, but I usually ask in the first session, have you had one recently? Have you
Okay.
checked these main things? And most people have. I think if they're coming to see a dietitian, they kind of already know they're into their health. Like they
Yeah.
know, or a lot of them, like I said, it's usually iron that they're dealing with, and we're following up with it. Okay, go. What are you taking? What's the dose of the supplement you're taking? How often are you taking it? When are you getting your blood levels tested again? So yes, it's definitely important for me to be able to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if you have it, like bring it for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Has there ever been a circumstance where you have not recommended a plant-based diet for someone?
Uh, I don't have a circumstance off the top of my head where that happened with a client of mine, because I do think we can work around a lot of things, and because they come to me and they're motivated to do this kind of stuff. But I can tell you with friends it's happened where they're
Mhm.
like, "I wanna eat more of this," but then they're just eating, like Impossible Nuggets or
What are your thoughts on those? Okay, that is something I wanted to ask you, is what do you think about all of the processed vegan, vegetarian foods, like the what you just said, like the Beyond Meats, but even like the vegan cheeses and
yeah.
all of that. What are your thoughts on those?
I think it's good innovation, because when I started becoming a vegetarian, we didn't have this
Any of
stuff.
that? Yeah.
The faux meats were soy based. They tasted like rubber. They were terrible. They were
The
not good.
tofurkey was so bad.
So bad. So bad. Even still at Trader Joe's, if you get something that's like a Trader Joe's product and it's like
No?
meatless, it's gonna be that. It doesn't
Okay,
taste
it
good.
doesn't taste good.
But so these things taste good. It's like a great innovation to get more people into this plant-based journey. But this is not like a healthy plant-based diet.
Mm,
An Impossible Burger has as much saturated fat as a regular burger. And I don't think that that's their mission statement. I think their mission statement was to save the environment and to have people eat less meat, but not necessarily for their health.
yeah.
So keep that in mind. I think it's okay to have those kinds of things and eat them every once in a while,
Mhm.
but it shouldn't be the main source of what you're eating every day,
Yeah.
because you're missing out on the benefits of the plant-based diet, which is the fiber and the vitamins and the minerals and the antioxidants. So you're not
Yeah.
getting that in those.
I think that kind of just goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier is like you don't need to cut out all the processed stuff because sometimes just having something in your freezer like a Beyond Burger to just throw in the microwave or on a pan or in the grill whatever is easy and
Yeah.
it's accessible like the protein shakes whatever you'd rather have something than not have something but with plant-based specifically it's like let's try to focus on as many whole foods as possible
Yeah.
is what you're
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
what I'm
I
gathering.
we'll cook Beyond Burgers maybe like once a month because my husband really likes them. But I also try to make sure that I have a vegetable on the side, and
Mhm.
so I think it's about balance,
I used
which
to be addicted to Beyond
they're
Burgers.
really good.
They're so good. When they first came out, no. Anything that's plant-based when they first come out is a little iffy. At least the things that I've tried. But like I said, when I was pescatarian, the tofurkey was the first thing I tried, and I was like, I can't do this.
No.
I'd rather not eat anything that even remotely looks like meat. I was like, I'd rather just eat regular turkey at that point, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's noted. I think it's good to know, like, as a registered dietitian, you're like, yeah, these are available. These are good in moderation, but it still has as much saturated fat as a regular burger. So we're kind of missing the point here. It's great for like a cookout and, just options maybe once a week, but stick to the real foods,
Yeah.
which I think meat eaters all can say the same thing. We don't eat enough proper nutrients and proper you know, fiber and protein and all of these things that are, buzzwords on social media right now. But in reality, they're buzzwords for a reason because we genuinely just don't eat enough as what we should.
Yeah. I think the stat is, I'm gonna get this wrong, but it's something like 2/3 or 3/4 of Americans don't get enough fiber every day. It may even be more than that,
Hmm.
but it's a lot.
Wait, can I ask you about chia seed pudding?
Sure.
Okay, because I can't get it right. I swear I've tried every recipe. Is there a recipe in your book of chia
Yes,
seed pudding?
yes.
I'm gonna need to do this.
I'm gonna bring. I'll send you one.
I need to do this because every single time I try to make chia seed pudding, it doesn't get to the consistency that I see professionals make it.
You need a lot more chia seeds than you think. A lot.
Okay.
I like maybe like half a cup of chia seeds.
Do you recommend chia seeds on like a daily basis?
Yeah, I love.
Okay.
Actually, my kids like chia seed pudding. It's
Wait, is it true that chia seeds, if they are not absorbed by anything, they can actually block your something?
yes,
I don't know
I
the
think I
science.
know what you're talking about.
Like when
The
people just sprinkle them on yogurt versus having the like sit overnight or something.
Yeah, so what happens with chia seeds is once they hit a liquid, they
They
expand.
mhm.
And I think I've seen people who just take like a tablespoon of them dry, they can like expand in your intestines. But I think that's people doing crazy stuff
Too
like mega
much.
doses.
Okay.
So putting them I just sprinkled them in oatmeal the other day and you like
Okay.
that's so there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
You're fine.
Just don't overdose on
Yeah,
chia seeds. But would that mean that if it expands inside that you could feel bloated?
yes.
Okay.
But also, I mean, this is going back to my anatomy classes. There's a acid in your stomach that destroys most things. So it doesn't get to your intestines fully formed anymore.
Okay.
So I think that's why I'm saying it had to be like a mega dose type
Yeah.
of.
I think people were probably doing a lot of it, and someone had said that, and I was like, "Okay, wait, that makes sense because chia seed pudding, it absorbs." Okay, so
Yeah.
to clarify, they absorb either way. So
Yes.
they're gonna expand either way, whether
Yes.
you do it before you eat them or after.
Yeah.
Got it.
This is
Okay.
the crazy stuff we see on social media.
Social media is great, but sometimes you're like, "What?" Okay, I wanna do some rapid fire questions to
Okay.
kind of finish things off. So these are just quick answers, basically. If you could change one thing about how people think about nutrition, what would it be?
Oh man. I wish this was a quick answer.
You can give me a condensed answer. I mean, it doesn't need to be like 2 words. It could be
I guess for my own that carbs are not bad. Like within my own scope of nutrition, carbs are not bad. They're not the enemy.
they're not the enemy and they taste great. What are some of the biggest myths, nutrition myths that you see circling around social media right now?
That you need a million grams of protein.
Mhm.
that uh that's the biggest one. You need a million grams of protein and you need 8,000 supplements every day. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously I'm exaggerating.
Yeah. What trends in sports nutrition excite you the most right now?
I mean, plant-based. I think that is a trend. And we're seeing more kind of documentaries about it and athletes doing it more, so
Mhm.
people going plant-based.
Well, what trends worry you the most?
Worry me. I don't know if people are still doing this, but people trying to fuel with fat, like cutting their carbs and doing a lot of I feel like that was more keto a few years ago,
Yeah.
but athletes were doing that. They were trying to train their body. They were calling it fat adapted. Have you heard of that?
No.
Like they were trying to train their body to become a fat adapted, so to use fat as fuel instead of carbs. Yeah,
Is that even possible?
yeah, but only elite athletes, and the studies are
Okay.
very small. It's
It's like
not.
don't try it unless you literally are working with a registered dietitian that can get you
I don't
where
even
you
know
need
if
to
a
be.
dietitian would tell you to do it. Like
Yeah.
some people just do it, but yeah.
What's your go-to pre-workout meal or snack?
If I'm if I have a long period of time, I'll eat a bagel
Mm.
because
Do
they
you put
make
anything on it?
usually it's just a little bit of butter or some peanut butter. That's usually pre-race because
Yeah.
I have like 3 to 4 hours to digest.
Mhm.
If it's only like an hour before, it's something simple like a granola bar or a
Mhm.
graham cracker or a waffle, something that's just very easy to digest.
Like is that simple carb?
Yeah.
Simple
Yeah.
carb?
Yeah.
I know a little something. Maybe. I don't know. What's your favorite plant-based meal to cook?
Oh, that's a good one. Lately we've been making this. I call it a tempeh BLT. So I cut tempeh really thin and then I marinate it in soy sauce and smoked paprika and maple syrup. And anyone who eats bacon would tell me this is not actually bacon, but then we fry it up on the pan and then we put it on this nice sourdough bread with lettuce and tomato and a vegan mayo. And it to me tastes like
A BLT?
close to a
Yeah.
BLT.
Yum. I don't
Yeah.
know if I've ever actually had a BLT, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've never really thought tomato and bacon. I don't know.
Really?
Bacon kind of freaks me out. It kind of freaks me out. Are there any foods that you feel are underrated in plant-based nutrition?
Yeah, I think tempeh is one of them for sure. I always say it's kind of like advanced plant-based
Mhm.
because people who are going into becoming plant-based are like, I'll do tofu or but I don't really like tofu and maybe I'm trying to figure it out. And I think tempeh doesn't get enough, which is tempeh is a fermented soybean and it's in if you see it, it's kind of packaged into like a block and it's got like a heartier texture than tofu. And I think it's really good for people who think tofu, they don't like the texture of it. So it's a good protein source.
Oh, I don't even think I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, it's and like you can get it in the supermarket, a block of it's like $4 or cheaper and it's got a lot of protein. Like one serving is maybe 12 or 13 grams of protein, and people
Oh,
are eating more than one serving a lot of times.
we're always eating more than one
Yeah,
serving.
I know.
Serving sizes, what is that? If you could give one piece of nutrition advice to anyone, and I'm talking meat eaters, plant-based, what would it be?
It'd be eat more plants.
Agree.
Yeah.
As someone who started eating meat again, but I feel like I was just struggling on both, whether I was eating meat or not eating meat, it was just eating more plants.
Yeah, and I think when we say plants, people tend to think of fruits and vegetables, which yes, I want people to eat more fruits and vegetables
Mhm.
100%, but it's not just that. It could be the thing chia seeds, tofu, tempeh, beans, lentils, rice, like all of these things
Yeah,
are nuts. So there's so many options out there and we're really skimping on a lot of them.
we are.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, I wanna ask, like, let's say someone is listening to this and they really want to, lean into plant-based, or maybe they already are and they're confused and they wanna start working with you. How would they go about that?
So you can visit my website. It's just greenleats.com, or you can find me on Instagram, which is greenleats. I also have my own podcast where I talk about fueling plant based athletes. And then we put the episodes on YouTube. So you can just basically search Greenleats and you'll find me.
Amazing. Well, I'm sure some people are going to be really interested to want to work with you. And I want to say thank you, obviously, so much for coming today and talking with me. I feel like I've learned so much about nutrition, sports nutrition, plant based. I need to be incorporating way more plants, more nuts and seeds, more than anything, I think, even berries. But I'm definitely good on the leafy greens. But again, not talking about me. Stop talking about me. Thank you so much. I really hope that people lean into plant-based a little bit more, and I hope they also enjoyed this conversation as much as I did.
Yeah, me too. And every plant counts. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. I love that every plant
Yeah.
counts. That's so cute.